Two of the best and most explosive playmakers at the wide receiver position in college football right now aren't even 21 because they're true freshman phenoms. Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State and Alabama's Ryan Williams. We're going to talk about them and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every day. As you know, I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated. DP, what did you call this? Class of 2027, I believe, right? We're going to talk about some freshman phenoms. Yes, you heard wide receiver Jeremiah Smith for the Ohio State Buckeyes might be the best wide receiver ever. That's a tall order, right? And that's a big statement right there, but that's what people are saying. And then Ryan Williams, right? Alabama. Ryan Williams, 17-year-old phenom. He may be the best wide receiver in the SEC. Some people are saying it. Then we're going to talk about that guy that looks like Patrick Mahomes, Nebraska Cornhusking quarterback, Dylan Raiola. We're going to have some fun and good conversations. DP, let's get into it.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Jeremiah Smith, Keith, 6'3", 215. And you know, a lot of times like camp and training camp and practice buzz, like it could be a little inflated sometimes where you're like, oh, you see the clips, you're like, well, are your cornerbacks just bad, or is your defense bad? Or is this guy really him? When you look at Jeremiah Smith, like the moment he walked into a college field and I saw like the body type at 18 years old as a true freshman against veteran college players, he looks NFL ready today. Like this is one of the guys that's going to test that theory of, well, you need 3 years to go to the league. Yeah, I think you give Jeremiah Smith a year and a half and I can draft him top 10 and I'll feel happy about it. Keith, I'm not going to lie. He looked to me at 6'3", 215. He looks a lot like Julio Jones. Like he looks a lot like Julio Jones. And I'm preparing everybody now. I remember when I tweeted this out, the year coming into Marvin being the starter for the first year into 2020. What was it, 2023 or 2022? And I was like, all right, everybody was buzzing about him. So is his hype going to match Jamar Chase? And the responses I got was it's going to surpass it. And you start calling him one of the greatest of all time, top 10 receiver draft pick, stuff like that. Jeremiah Smith is probably going to be in that same type of range. And where Marv being a tactician, technical, nuance, all that stuff, this young kid, young man, Jeremiah Smith, Keith, speed, power, explosiveness, ball skills, and he's got so much room to grow as a route runner. With that NFL X receiver size, I look at him and I said, man, I see Julio Jones all over again. And I don't know how Ohio State keeps doing this, but at this point, it needs to be studied because this is unreal.
Nah, I mean, you recruit, right? Recruit or die, man. That was my mantra at LSU. You better recruit, baby. You better bring in those top guys. But he appears to look special, DP. I'm right there with you. And I can't wait for Ohio State to finally get in some big-time matchups. I know they had a couple, I guess, games early on, right? And then last week, I believe, was a bye week, so they didn't play at all. But I'm excited to watch Jeremiah Smith and see what he can do because I agree. And this is what we're going to start to see earlier and earlier is that these guys are going to be known earlier and earlier due to NIL, due to, some states having NIL due to these guys wanting to start to build their brand. So we're going to get deeper and deeper into knowing these guys earlier and earlier. But DP, let's turn over to the Roll Tide, man. We got to talk about Mr. Ryan Williams, the playmaker, DP. He appears to be Jalen Milroe's go-to guy at only 17 years old. Yes, this kid is only 17 years old, and he's making plays out there. And I'll say this, DP. You said Jeremiah Smith reminds you of Julio Jones, right? But I believe Julio and AJ Green, they were in the same draft class, I believe.
Yeah.
They were in the same draft class, and I don't think he reminds me of AJ Green. But what I'm saying is that in a couple of years, we may have another spectacular 1-2 Hall of Fame type punch, right? Similar to what happened in that draft class. And Ryan Williams, people are comparing him, right, to Devontae Smith all over again, or maybe a more explosive Devontae Smith. And I don't even know what that is, right? I guess Smith runs a 4.3, then how do you even stop that? But the guy just looks natural. He looks like a fluid route runner. He has great hands, right? You see the open field acceleration. I think it was the play against USF, and it just seemed like he was the only one that was moving fast, right? Which, all of these guys can run, but he was like creating distance, and it was off of a curl or a hitch, right, where he had to work backwards and then turn upfield and then run away from everybody, right? So that was definitely impressive by Ryan Williams.
No, I think there was a quote that he said he's coming for Devonta Smith's Heisman. Like he wants to win a Heisman for Bama at the wide receiver position, which we know isn't easy. And it took a special year from Smitty to even accomplish that, right? The voters had to decide, okay, do we give it to Mac Jones, his quarterback, or do we give it to him? It was like, well, we give it to the guy who was making the plays. And I love that attitude, Keith. And on the season right now, Ryan Williams, for those who don't know, he's listed at 6 foot even, 175 pounds. Remember, like he said, he's 17 years old. For one, he can't vote. So that he's not even reached his grown man body yet. He's only 17. He's got 10 catches, 285 yards receiving, 4 touchdowns. He's averaging 28.5 yards per reception. And it's just a fact of like this level of athleticism between him and Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah on the season, 11 receptions, 211 yards, 19 yards per catch, and 3 receiving touchdowns. This freshman class, just with those two, it's special, Keith. And like I said, 2027, I don't know who the quarterbacks will be at that particular moment. I'm pretty sure that Nico and Arch will be the top guys in 2026, with Malik Murphy probably being in that range if he keeps balling at Duke. I don't know what 2027 is going to look like at the quarterback position. I know wide receiver is going to be just fine at the top, because when you have these two young men carrying the torch and just making plays that they ran. I was watching tape on Ohio State's offense when I was studying Will Howard. They ran an RPO concept where you had, I think it was Carnell Tate, a quick motion into the flats. You had on the same side as Jeremiah. Jeremiah ran like a little quick hitch. There were defenders closing in, and nobody touched him. Like he caught it and just went like sifted through the entire defense. I think he took it like 80 yards or something like that. So you see the big play speed, the ball skills to win at the catch point, the physicality. So you could they do different things with him and Ryan Williams. These are guys you just want to get the ball in their hands. You don't really care how, like if it's a quick smoke screen, a bubble screen, a wide receiver tunnel screen, a drag route, mesh concept, quick hitches. These are the type of guys you say, listen, you tell as a head coach, you just tell your OC, let's dial it up, let's get it to them. Everybody else take care of your blocks. They're gonna make the play for us.
Yep, I agree. 100% DP. You say you don't know who the quarterbacks are going to be. I think I have a couple names, DP. I have some names in the hoster, man. We about to get into it. One of those guys, guess what? He looks like Patrick Mahomes, baby, on and off the field. We're going to get into that coming up next.
For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Patrick Mahomes rookie card just simply isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value and a complete view of all possible cards and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and use the code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonnfl and use the code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase. You know, Keith, I don't know why I made that statement, because we literally have Dylan Raiola right now to talk about. Yes, he would be probably the top quarterback of the 2027 class, but you said it, Keith, and we talked about, in spurts a little bit. This young man looks like Pat Mahomes. He wears 15. He's got his Nebraska, he got the red and white jerseys. He's got the same haircut. It's even going to the fact that he's doing the same pre-game rituals.
Yeah, I've seen that where you got
Pat
to
Mahomes
run to the end zone and jump up. And I think so at some point though, right, that you can't deny that you're copying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's and it's cool. Like if you want to be anybody, right? It's Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, right? There's a couple of those guys, and there's nothing wrong. Like that's how the game evolves, right? You implement some stuff and then you take it to another level. But man, just watching this guy, right? You're talking about a true freshman. You're talking about all the hype, right? I feel like I've been talking about this guy since he was in the 8th grade, DP. Then he was a player. I think he went to 4 different high schools all over the country. And so that drew up a lot of buzz. And I think he was going to Georgia at the very end of the situation, wind up going to Nebraska. I believe his father played at Nebraska offensive line. So guy that's kind of been groomed, right? And when I think about it, I think about offensive line, your father playing offensive line. If that was my son, right, and he plays quarterback, offensive line, one thing he's not getting wrong, DP? Protections, right? You're going to know protections. You're going to know slide. You're going to know fanning out. You're going to know all of these different terms, right? You're going to know your protections, DP. You're going to be able to identify the blitz, big dog. And so just from an IQ standpoint, he appears to have that part down, right? Like the football intelligence, right? Pre-snap, being able to see certain things. And then when you talk about the physical profile, the reason that people say he's similar to Patrick Mahomes is because he's more elusive and slippery than he is, this guy's a world-class athlete, right? Like, and you get the same thing from Patrick Mahomes. It's like, hey, this guy's kind of elusive and slippery. And same thing with Caleb Williams, right? Then they are world-class athletes. So I'm excited to watch his career unfold. And, hey, can he bring back Nebraska football, right? Because we know he can be a staple as far as recruiting to say, hey, wide receivers, do you want to come play with this guy, right? Proven, and then we know how open the NIL and transfer portal is. He can immediately flood people to Nebraska, but the guy himself is an ultra talent.
I love that point, Keith, because it's similar to the NFL. If you have Patrick Mahomes like the Kansas City Chiefs have, and let's say you have an open book to pay guys, if Jamar Chase walked into free agency, you're like, hey, we got a bag for you, and we got Patrick Mahomes. Roger's like, well, I'll go. If Cincinnati's not going to cut the check, I'll go to Kansas City. Like when you have a quarterback like that, and it's from recruiting, like these young kids talk to each other. They work out together in the offseason, things like that. If you don't think he's talking to some of these other 5-star recruits that might be in the same class, that hey, in a year, maybe year or two, they're not happy with their situation, bro, come to Nebraska. I'll take care of you. You're going to get the rock with me. He's listed at like 6'3", 230. I didn't realize he was listed that size, Keith. 6'3", 230 as a true freshman. It's kind of crazy to think about. But like his body type looks like, from a body type standpoint, he looks like Patrick Mahomes too, the way he's built. And it's just very uncanny the type of doppelganger he is. But he's got a big arm. Like I said, he has enough mobility and elusiveness in the pocket to make plays. And so far on the season right now, he's completed 59 of his 80 attempts. He's got 670 yards passing, 74% completion percentage, 5 passing touchdowns. So he only has 1 interception. Crazy enough, Keith, he's only been sacked 1 time, and that was the first game against UTEP. You know what I mean? Like, so he's not dealing with a lot of pressure. They're running the ball. He's doing a good job just right now, not having to, even though he has all the tools and traits physically to be that big arm quarterback, give you the wild plays. He did have that one wild throw, I think against Colorado. I would have told him not to throw that ball, but when you have that type of arm talent, you can't really say. It's one of those situations as a coach, like you like no, but it's like, oh well, it's completed, so okay, fine. But it's like he was rolling out to his right, he like jump throws back across the field to his left, like 40, 50 yards upfield to the goal line to a receiver that was streaking wide open. I was just like, okay, yeah, that's the type of stuff Pat Mahomes was doing at Texas Tech. You know what I mean? Very backyard again football, not really. He's breaking the rules and laws of the game at quarterback. But Dylan Raiola, Keith, like I'm really excited to see because I don't even feel like he's been unleashed yet. You know what I mean? Where it's like just 30 dropbacks, 35, 40 dropbacks. He's got to pass, which they're going to have some games where I expect him to be in those situations. I think the Ohio State, you go into Ohio State and you go to USC. Ohio State October 26th and then USC November 16th, like right before Thanksgiving. So like those are two big time road games where you got to go in, and those are offenses that's going to be able to put up points against your defense. And if they put up points, you're going to have to put up points. And that's what he's going to be put in that position towards, all right, now, yeah, we can run the ball, but they're scoring at a rapid pace, and we got to keep up. And that's why I'm looking forward to seeing what him is like when he's just able to be completely unleashed. If he throws picks, I get it. I know you want to win games. I understand, but I don't really mind it, Keith, because he got to get it out of his system, right? Like just throwing the ball around the yard. Let's learn what you can't do and what you can do. And against Ohio State's defense, you might learn that. You know what I mean? Because that's a good defense. So this young man is super talented. We just haven't even seen him really be unleashed in this offense, and I'm looking forward to it. When that moment comes, I'm going to be eyes glued to the screen to see what he's doing.
Yep, I agree 100%. Definitely a name to keep track of, right? Even as a true freshman. But DP, I'm gonna name another true freshman, man, who we have to keep eyes on at the quarterback position, Mr. DJ Lagway, right? A guy that we feel like again we've been talking about for quite a minute. And he's a guy that top colleges battle for, right? Ultimately, he chose to go to Florida. And what is he at Florida, or what role will I think he'll carve out early? And a lot of people believe is like Tim Tebow 2.0, right? And he came out the gate swinging. I think that was his first start against Samford, I believe, went 18 of 25, threw for 456 yards, right, and 3 touchdowns. I can't remember if he got the start against Texas A&M or if he played sparingly and they split the reps. But Texas A&M wasn't a great situation, right? First SEC matchup. Threw for 54 yards, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, only 13 attempts, right? But be on the lookout for this guy because everybody talks about the athlete that he is. And if he's able to implement the athleticism and get the offense together, DP, I think that he can be another special talent. And you think in terms of Tim Tebow, you think of Jalen Hurts, you think of Jalen Milroe. I don't know why it didn't seem right saying Jalen Hurts and then Jalen Milroe, but I was like, I gotta be messing this up. But no, both guys are named Jalen and they both played at Alabama. But
crazy.
Yeah, I want to keep eyes on him, right, to see how he develops. And then also, I mean, we know these guys, but we also know one thing is out there, right? The transfer portal at the end of the day. And you don't know if he's going to go to another situation or something he may deems to be a better fit, because I believe that Billy Napier is still the head coach of Florida, but obviously everybody's talking about the hot seat situation. So just another freshman phenom to be able to pay attention to, DP, that I think he'll be able to get the ball rolling.
100% kid, another big kid, 6'3", listed as 240. He's got a big arm.
Yep.
And we talked about Graham Mertz on I think it was yesterday's pod when we, was he getting in Dame's Dudes Club? He couldn't right now. I wonder how long is the leash for Graham Mertz, because it's like, how desperate coaches will get at the end of that when they know that their seat is hot. It's like, hey, maybe I could restart my clock by playing the freshman and letting the freshman get his reps in. You know what I mean? And I think that's where I'm interested to see how. I forgot that that Lagway was a true freshman, because I've known him for so long, known about him, where it felt like he was a sophomore at this point. And I was just like, oh, you're right, he is a true freshman. So no, I'm not saying I want Graham Mertz to be benched. I want the guy to get his reps and try and close out his senior season. But I can't lie, I am interested to see what it would look like with DJ Lagway getting the start for multiple games where he knows going into that game, I'm the starter. I'm preparing like the starter. I'm in the part of the game plan. I'm not just being thrown in because someone's hurt or he's not playing well.
I agree, DP. We talked about wide receivers. We talked about quarterbacks. Right now, we're going to talk about those other skill positions, those impact players. And we may have a guy, DP, that can go number one overall in a couple of years because he came out the gate swinging, right? Making an imprint, making his name known. So we're going to talk about that guy, Mr. Edge Rusher, Jadeveon Clowney 2.0, maybe. We'll talk about him coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, on this very podcast. From NFL preseason betting odds and options for the MVP race to college football preseason betting odds for the Heisman and the college football playoffs. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you will be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you will need to accomplish this is a Google account, a current form of payment, and guess what, guys? You can cancel at any given time. All you need to do is just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. All you need to do is just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Dylan Stewart. Keith, I messed up at the end of the show. I think I called him Kyle Stewart yesterday. I don't know why, but it's Dylan Stewart. 6'6", 250. On the season, 3 sacks. He has 4 QB hits, 4 or 5 pressures. He's got 2 forced fumbles. This young man has been a terror. Last week, LSU's got 2 legitimate, like all-American tackles. And that was I think that was his welcome to college football moment, going up against those guys at Emory Jones and Will Campbell. And, just kind of a learning lesson for him on how to approach veterans who've played ball. But you see all the tools with this young man, the motor, for 6'6", 250, he has the ability to dip and bend and turn the corner. You got ankle flexion. He's fluid as a mover, but he's got the first step quickness. He's got long arms. Like you mentioned Jadeveon Clowney, Keith. Somebody said this to me on Twitter 2 weeks ago, and I haven't been able to shake it since. Myles Garrett. And I was like, let me go back and look at Myles from his freshman year. I said, okay, yeah, I see it. You know what I mean? I was like, Myles ended up, of course, body type wise, bulking up more, where, you know what I mean? He put on a lot more muscle as he got older. And I think this young man could do the same thing. And then Myles didn't lose his athleticism by doing it either. And if he's able to do that, this young man, like you said, Keith, in the tease to this part of the show, he could be the future first overall pick of that 2027 NFL draft. Even with a Dylan Raiola and a Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, this kid is that talented.
Yeah, he has the upside. And when you watch it, DP, it's the reckless abandon / wreak havoc / wild in the very best way / it's a lot, right? But it's a lot. And that's how you want your edge rush, especially your young guy, because the motor is so high, DP. And I think with the matchup against LSU, real quick for him, this is what I think. I think that he got off to a hot start. And then I think Will Campbell and Emory Jones, being veterans, they settled in, understood his moves. So he just had to go develop those counter moves now, right? And then also develop that the endurance, right? To understand that this is a 70 play game. This is an 80 play game, to where I have to, be able to kind of pick and choose what things I choose to deploy, right? At those moments, and how to beat those
marathon,
guys.
Not a sprint.
Yeah, yep, 100%. It was a marathon, not a sprint. But DP, in that same matchup, I think we've seen somebody emerge, DP, out of nowhere, right? There's another freshman running back for LSU, Mr. Caden Durham, was a four-star out of high school. I think he came out of Duncanville, if I'm speaking correctly. But listen, you've seen this guy explosiveness, you've seen this guy vision, you've seen contact balance, you've seen it all, right? And you've seen LSU start to lean on him. So we're talking about the future, right? When we talk about, guys that were known early on, and you think about the Travion Hendersons, the J.K. Dobbins, right, and how these guys started to carve out roles as freshmen for big-time programs, and they became names 2, 3, 4 years down the line, right, as their careers unfolded. I think you're starting to see the same thing with Caden Durham, right? Like, the guy is talented, he's skilled, he was a freshman. So obviously, freshmen, you don't want to put them out there early and they blow a pass protection situation, or you don't want to put out there and ruin him either. But this guy looks like he's a natural runner of the football, and he made some big time runs for LSU, to be honest. And so he's another guy that I want to put on the radar as far as like, hey, when we building out this class, he's a running back to pay attention to. And Brian Kelly mentioned something, and that's why I'm mentioning his name, right, for all our draft fans. He mentioned something about the offensive coaches getting to know their personnel. And what I take is that they took who is performing well in that game, and they're going to give that guy more snaps, right? And I think that's Caden Durham in this situation. So definitely be on the lookout for that.
No, 11 carries, 98 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And he had 7 missed tackles forced in that game, Keith. And I'm not going to lie, when I was watching him during the game, I was like, man, this feels a little bit like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire all over again. And then I saw the burst and explosiveness from him. I said, okay, that's a little different, where Clyde didn't have that per se. Like, similar body types and everything, being short, low center of gravity runners, guys that can make plays in space. But yeah, Caden, like, Durham's going to be on my watch list for the next 2 years for sure, because, yeah, he was a big part of that. He was a big reason that LSU was able to come back in that game after kind of being down a little bit early. Like, he getting the ball going through him, settled the offense down, gave you that balance you need. Because the week before, I think LSU played Nichols, and it was nothing but Garrett Nussmeier throwing, and they couldn't get the run game going and things like that. And like, I was like, all right, that makes you predictable. Then you're just telling defensive lines to just pin their ears back and go at your quarterback. But being balanced like that, I appreciate that a whole lot from them. And this guy, he's not actually a true freshman, he's a true sophomore, but a guy I'm going to highlight real quick, Keith. Nick Harbor, the 6'5", 240-pound wide receiver from South Carolina. I think he played defensive end in high school. He's like a elite track star. I think he's like a 10-1.
Yeah, 10-1.
10-1 in the 100. So it's like, for reference, what was it? Was it DK, I think, ran a 10-3 or something like that when he did the trial 2-3 summers ago. And I'm just like, to watch him, and the body type is completely different than what we see from the actual guys who run track. Like, it's a 6'4", 235-pound man running beside 5'8", 160-pound dudes, right? But he was able to hold his own for the most part. To see this young man run track, so it's like, I'm looking at South Carolina like, hey, you got Lenore Sellers, he's got a big arm, you got the run game going. Let's get Nick Harbor going. Let's get some deep shots. I know he's still raw at the wide receiver position, but when you're 6'5", 235 with that type of speed, listen, I got to figure out how to get you going. You know what I mean? I got to figure out somehow to get a deep shot. I'm not going to lie, Keith, I'll probably even look at lining them up at the tight end spot, not making them play tight end, but like just that tight end alignment, force him against a linebacker. Oh, yeah, I'm isolating that matchup 24/7, and I'm throwing the go ball like it's NCAA 25. I'm absolutely doing it. Like, if I'm South Carolina.
No, without a doubt, and I don't even care if he has to put his hand in the ground, right, and start from a track stance and then take off, right? I just want, if you're faster than everybody, I want you to run faster than everybody, and I'm going to put you in position, and even if that starts with your stance, right, I don't care if you get in the track stance and take off. DP with a 10-1, you mean he's got, like, this guy has the potential to touch a 9-something, right, by the time he's touching college. Like, that's
Olympic numbers.
Times that I think what 9.7, 9.8. Usain Bolt ran a 9.6, right? So I think the 981 gold medal. So that the guy is somewhere in that range, DP, of Olympic time. He gets this thing down. So yeah, that's a huge weapon. And then being 6'5", you being able to coach him, right, and things like that. And like you said, him being able to run in the middle of the field, him being able to DP. I even think about the go ball, but if he gets these double moves down pack, right, the post corner, the corner post, oh my God, who's gonna stay with that, right? Because then if you everybody knows you're fast, so usually defensive backs bite on the first thing because they don't want to get beat, right? So you're running double moves all day. You're running slant goals, you're running post corners, you're running corner posts, right? You're doing all type of things.
Yeah.
If
got to get some hitches going too, Keith, because you expect with his speed,
everybody to be bailing, so
be bailing out, get some hitches going.
Yeah, so we're going to use this to set up your speed and get everything figured out. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, a freshman phenom episode of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated over here at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's episode, we are getting into previewing week 4 of college football, the prospects that need to make a statement, those second-tier prospects, and those sleepers that you need to wake up on. Guys, so come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.